Ding, 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 ding. Carney and Poilievre set to go head-to-head. Parliament in session today. I'm Jim Check with Now Media. With me, Ian Burns, managing editor out there in the nation's capital in Kelowna right now. Beautiful blue skies with a smattering of clouds and not really any smoke in the air. So a beautiful day in the sunny Okanagan. Lots going on though. Liberals launched tiny homes for Canada. Some cynics might say, is Canada set to become the slumlords? Tiny homes, you gotta love it. Ready for a budget? Not so fast. Liberals backpedaling. Media slurs the right. Imagine that. CBC climate activism heats up. Is it hypocritical or just elitism? And while the world prays, the extreme left shouts for more death. All that and a lot more on the Really Big Show. Now, those are some headlines, eh?
It's just another day of fun, isn't it?
But the big one is, like I said, ding, 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 ready for round one. They're going to have a whole 73 days this year in Parliament. But round one set to go here as Parliament opens up today with Pierre Poilievre meeting the Prime Minister, Mark Carney. We were expecting a budget, but apparently that's not going to happen for a while. But we'll talk about that in a bit here. But, you know, it's about time they got back to work in the biggest crisis facing us since World War II.
It's just astonishing, isn't it, how little scrutiny they've had of their decision to go and have a summer vacation. I mean, they've made a few announcements. Carney made an announcement yesterday in his own back door in Nepean. Not his Nepean, but the Nepean next door. And he went there up to the podium and he was like, look at us, we're here on a Sunday. That's how important it is. And it's just, he's done that a few times as well when he addressed the caucus and he said, now I know you haven't had any time off in this summer. You've all been working hard this summer. It's just, you can see that it's in his mind as something to think about. But the press, you know, the sort of main publications at least, just aren't interested in this. They're not interested in the subject. But even just in my own experience, just anecdotally, I can tell you that just totally random people are upset about this. They're upset that they've had this ludicrously long vacation on top of another vacation before that, and that they still get paid huge sums of money effectively to do nothing if they want. I mean, they can be proactive. If they feel like it, they can go around and they can deal with things. They can deal with constituents, or they can, you know, make media appearances or try and formulate policy or whatever it is. They can do all sorts of things. But realistically, I think we have to say that most of them haven't been doing that, have they? They've been off into cottage country and having a laugh.
And this is Dan Elvis put this out there. It says, and I remember this very vividly, we campaigned on the promise to get new ports, mines, highways, major nation building projects built faster. We're delivering on that promise. And the list that we got was all stuff that was near completion.
Yeah, although the second bit of the announcement included some potentially new projects, but I mean, even them, they're not brand new. Like, a lot of fuss has been made about Churchill. That's not exactly a brand new idea, is it? That's been in the works for ages. Wow. And then the high-speed rail, that goes back. It's not just Trudeau's announcement. I mean, the idea of that high-speed line, not that exact one, but one like that, goes back many years, decades.
Well, they did put out, the Liberal Party did promote, you know, as we get back to set to go into Parliament today, they did put this out. Tomorrow, our work continues in Parliament. This is what they've got done in the summer. Launched the Canada Strong Pass, a coupon. So they got a coupon. That's the top of the list. That's top billing. Coupon.
Dreadful, so isn't it?
You got a coupon. If you went, you couldn't. I mean, your kids get in free, but you still had to pay. So it's basically a coupon. Removed all the federal internal trade barriers. Were there any? Really?
Bit of an exaggeration there, isn't it?
There's provincial trade barriers that were between there. What federal internal trade barriers? Do you know of any?
Yeah, I think you might be able to make an obscure argument about that, but it's a little bit overzealous. That that's C5 that they're trying to brag about.
And then the provincial barriers are still there for many provinces. Expanded the Canadian dental care program. That was an NDP push thing. Launched the Major Projects Office to fast-track nation-building projects. They opened an office. So he got a coupon and he opened an office. I could have done that.
Introduced tariff relief. That was already in place, wasn't it? Trudeau already announced tariff relief.
And here's the other one they did. Made travel between Atlantic provinces more affordable. Again, they cut the fare there, and then turns out they won't disclose how much. I think it's Anita Annan's husband that is part of the company that has the tariffs on that bridge. They won't disclose the details of that, so they should add that underneath. Won't disclose the details of how they cut the fees on that bridge. Impacted or invested to support workers and protect, build, and transform strategic industries. Isn't that the same thing as like that couple points up?
That's like what somebody who can't think of how to fill space on their resume.
Yeah.
That's something that they would write,
You just
isn't
repeat
it?
something.
I invested to support workers and protect.
You just repeat. So nothing. So there you go. Nothing. A coupon. Again, if you were a cynic, you would say a coupon is the top of the list. A coupon.
I would say that this almost certainly, if I know how these kind of things tend to work, almost certainly this was written by a 23-year-old who has no idea what he or she is doing, where they are, what's going on, and they were just given this responsibility and completely screwed it up. That's my considered opinion there, because this is truly bad. This is a bad piece of work. It's not just as simple as, oh, the Liberals have screwed up. This is just a bad, image or piece of whatever you want to call it, promotional material. Because obviously, if this was written by somebody with a brain, they would have put the wages for armed forces members right at the top, because that is obviously the biggest thing. That's the thing you want to brag about. But I mean, that then the kind of the strong pass shouldn't even be there. I mean, if it is going to be there, like right at the bottom. But clearly, the person that composed this opus lacked wisdom. I would humbly submit.
You might as well, if this was your resume, you could say, get up in the morning. Don't say what time, though. I get up in the morning. Yeah, it's a pretty bad list.
Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, it's just a crap piece of work anyway, isn't it? It's just like AI could genuinely have done a vastly better job than this. It's very, very poor, and it just looks poor. It's like the sky with a list. It's not good advertising material, is it? It's a very bad piece of work.
But they did make that announcement yesterday, and this was the Build Canada homes, and we'll build faster, smarter, and build Canadian. Let's listen in here.
Major challenge with housing construction in this country is that by using conventional methods, our construction is just too slow for the housing supply that we need to meet our current needs. It's also too expensive and too heavily reliant on traditional on-site methods. We need to transform the way we build by harnessing the latest technologies. And that's why Build Canada Homes will prioritize the use of cost-efficient and modern methods of construction, including factory build, modular, and mass timber. Factory build housing means homes, or large parts of homes, built in controlled factory settings, with provision, precision, with advanced machinery, and benefiting from the latest technology. These homes can be standardized, mass-produced, and once completed, shipped to site and assembled in days or weeks rather than months or years.
That's good. Yeah, that's good enough. I mean, we can go through some of the stuff. You can still build a home cheaper than mass-produced homes. And I've done a ton of research on this. I've talked to builders on this. I mean, there is some standardization, but the shipping costs are typically high. I actually visited the Boxable plant in California, where they're building these fold-out homes. They can actually, assemble them within a couple of hours. But and in full disclosure, which he should have disclosed, Brookfield Asset Management is a significant shareholder of Modular Homes. Should have mentioned that. But here's their advertising. Here's their promo clip on it. Let's play their promo clip on it.
Build Canada Homes will catalyze the creation of an entirely new Canadian housing industry that uses modern methods of construction to boost productivity sustainably and at scale. Canadians have given our new government a mandate to build a stronger Canada with lower costs, safer communities, and homes you can afford. By building smart, building Canadian, building now, we are building Canada strong.
Red Hot Chili Peppers in the background there for some reason. That's probably going to get us punished by YouTube. Cheers for that, Liberals.
And then we got Sean Fraser here that, you know, standing in front of these little boxes, 200 square foot boxes. Somebody being a cynic there. But, you know, some other cynics have said this could be very well, you know, like Canada becoming, the government becoming a slum landlord by building these small homes. I actually, as a youngster, worked in the construction industry and in high-level Alberta, and I worked on government housing at the time. And this is not a new concept. We built, where I was part of the project that built, and I can't remember, like 100 homes, and they were all kind of the same. Man, did we cut corners. And I was just a young guy told to cut corners, like joist hangers, all kinds of things, the way that we filled around pipes and everything, and just because the inspectors never showed up, so we cut so many corners on that stuff. And as I think a 19 or 20-year-old, I just did what I was told. Imagine that, eh? Everybody was making money, and the houses were poorly built and shoddily built for sure.
That's what they said at the Nuremberg trials as well, isn't it? I was just doing what I was told.
Yeah.
It's no excuse. But I do find this funny that Sean Fraser's here, by the way. This is a new announcement? Because he obviously was the housing minister, and he did all this with Trudeau.
This is an old, I think,
so
I
it's
believe
quite strange.
Older clip, I think. Yeah, somebody just using it.
And that Carney video as well. Can you remember the Justin Trudeau one where he did one where the camera kind of like followed him, or he followed the camera, and he was walking through. It's all just the same. It's all the same junk, isn't it? Really, it's the same stuff reheated.
But here's Modular Homes, Modular Group. They are, you know, like one of the larger modular home builders in the world. This is looks like a couple of stacked sea cans with some glass in them. Looks better.
It looks like a novelty Airbnb, doesn't it? That you find in the woods sometimes.
Faster, modular. But anyway, this thing is coming with a budget of $13 billion. And they're going to oversee the construction of 4,000 homes on federal land. None of those in BC, though. So that's offering incentives to builders. Somebody should be asking if they're there. Is Modular Group cut out because of the conflict of interest? Are they not allowed to bid? I did a lot of research on this too when I was a controller at a mine site, because we were looking for modular homes, trailers, ATCO trailers and stuff like that. They're not cheap. They're not cheap.
One of the things that Kenney didn't talk too much about in his announcement, but in the press release that they sent out, they emphasized that what's so good about these homes, and especially for Canada, is that you can build them during the winter and then deploy them still during because obviously construction season is usually quite short.
Well, that's not
in
true.
Canada.
You know, when I worked for when I was doing the housing project in high level, it was 45 below. We were working, roofing, doing everything.
Well, I did find that curious, and I was intending to
that's a complete lie.
Investigate further.
I mean, it's hard to pour concrete, right? So you want to pour your footings in the spring or the fall, right? Or the summer. You want to pour your footings of concrete. You want to pour the concrete, but the rest of it can happen during the winter. Like we were actually shingling roofs in 45 below. You go up there, you shingle for an hour, you come in, you defrost, take the walrus, the icicles off your face, and go back up. Yeah. So most of the world doesn't stop working in the north. You don't have a choice because it's like, you know, like 8 months of the year is winter. So actually, all the oil
that's being
stuff
put forward as a justification anyway by our dear ruling class.
But even in the north, the oil field stuff typically only happens in the winter months because you can't gain access to the land in the boggy summer where it's swamp. But anyway, they named a new boss there too. Somebody else is going to be raking a big salary. So the former deputy mayor, Anna Bailio, has been appointed to lead the Build Canada Homes Agency. She's going to join the other lady that got the job there as the Canada Projects one, where she's, you know, like head of the C5 thing. And then still, I wonder who's going to make.
I think we should highlight she was a councillor in Toronto. So you had there behind Mark Carney, we can't quite see him. We can see his shoulder, but Gregor Robertson there, who was in charge of Vancouver, and then now we've got the deputy mayor of Toronto. The two markets, Toronto and Vancouver, they're not even just the worst in Canada. They're basically the worst on earth. Those
Yeah.
two housing markets, and they're the people that they're gonna fix the housing crisis.
And the other lady, I can't remember her name now, in charge of the the projects office there. It's actually
Dawn something, yeah.
Dawn. She dwarfed Sky Canada's salary. She's making like $550 or something compared to the doctor there at Sky Canada making a paltry $393,000. It's wonder when they're going to disclose how much the former deputy mayor of Toronto is going to make. I bet you she's going to make a lot more than she made as deputy mayor in Toronto.
It's good times, isn't it? Good times for such people.
And then we talk about the budget because it's back in session. When can we get the budget? Because the session's not going to last very long because we're coming up on Christmas pretty quick here, so they'll be recessing for Christmas. But here's Vasi Kapelis. Here's the budget now isn't coming till November. Why rush something that's just going to cause a lot of controversy? But let's listen in to Vasi here.
Became so used to this agreement that existed between the NDP and the Liberals, right, which kind of, in a way, felt like it gave the Liberals a de facto majority. There wasn't that drama that is inherent to most minority governments. Well, that comes back in this iteration because there is no formalized dance party for the Liberals. And in fact, the NDP and the Bloc have become, I would say, more frigid towards supporting the, any idea of supporting the Liberals for their own reasons. But now it appears that they will have to rely on the Conservatives to pass some of the big parts of their legislative agenda, which again is a brand new dynamic because in the last number of years, you never saw the Liberals and the Conservatives working together to advance major pieces of legislation really outside of COVID.
And Vashi, before you go, can you give us more thoughts around the budget? I feel like the Prime Minister is going to be asked, why November? Why is it going to take so long?
Well, Marcia, I wish I could. It is almost impossible to get any substantive answers from anyone. I'll be fair to any government and say usually they reserve the details for the actual budget, but they have done a lot of groundwork to try and get a narrative out there, right? It's going to be austere, but also full of investment. It's going to cut spending, but not cut any public service jobs. Like, quite simply, and I keep saying this, I'm kind of a broken record, I don't understand how the math adds up at this juncture. I know it's a politically very important document for them, but as far as if they will actually exercise the kind of fiscal restraint that the Prime Minister has promised, but at the same time maintain all of the program spending that they also promised they would and increase.
It's a shame, isn't it, that Vasi is considered to be probably the best TV person in Canada when it comes to political news. And yet all she does is state the absolute obvious, It's obvious, but she's the only one that has the cojones to literally just say what she sees in front of her face.
Yeah,
but I just thought I would highlight the obvious contradiction in this budget and this financial plan that the Liberals sort of have, but haven't really told us about, which is that everything's going to stay the same. We're going to spend everything still, but somehow we're going to also bring spending down. Don't know how, but that's going to happen.
Do you notice in that video they were showing Mark Carney and his wife were walking around an active job site? And what did you see that they weren't wearing?
Didn't have a hard hat on, did they?
So they would have told because WCB rules say you have to have that on an active job site. That clearly is an active job site. But they would have said it doesn't look good for the photo op. So again, they skirted the rules.
Usually they love to put a hat on, don't they?
Yeah,
Any excuse to get one on.
But there you go. No hard hat. Active job site. Rules apply to thee, not me.
Maybe he just got a $500 haircut or something and he didn't want to risk it.
It was clearly an active job site. So there you go, WCB. Go find them.
I would also say, just to comment on what Vasi said there, she was saying about the NDP and the Bloc not really being positively disposed towards the Liberals this time around, and she said for their own reasons. I'm surprised she didn't continue her statement of the obvious, which is that the NDP were absolutely wiped out in that election. in large part because of their association with the Liberal Party. And the Bloc also suffered quite a lot in that election, lost quite a lot of seats. And some of that, I presume, is down to the perception that they let Trudeau get away with a lot of things that they shouldn't have done. So, but it is interesting. Elizabeth May also, the Green leader, she was talking about this business, and she's got quite an interesting perspective. But she was saying she doesn't think there's going to be an election within a year. She's like, I don't think, I'm not. She wasn't 100% confident, but she's like, I don't think so. But that's quite interesting to think that she's very much an insider in the sort of political world, and she clearly thinks that there's going to be an election in about a year or something like that. So it's a very interesting and under-discussed point, isn't it? That this is a minority government after all, even though it's pretending that it's a majority government, and its days, as is the case with all minority governments, its days are numbered.
Well, they were setting the stage. First it was no budget, then there's going to be a budget, then it's kind of when they come back in session, and now it's November, and here now they're setting the stage here, and this is Mark Carney talking about the budget and why it's going to be higher and who's to blame. Take a guess. Who should we blame for the budget? Who should we blame? Let's just dig around in the hat. Let's dig around.
Hitler.
Let's dig around in the hat and see if we can pull out an excuse. Let's go.
And just on the
Is it an
upcoming
orange
budget,
excuse?
your House leader said this morning that the deficit will be, quote, substantial. How big are we talking, and what does that mean for future cuts?
Substantial means that it'll be bigger than it was last year. I mean, the actual level will come out with the budget. But let's look at what's driving that. First and foremost, it's the tariff war, the shock that's created by that, the rupture. So you have the impact of that. Secondly, you have the response of Canada to that, which is very clear. We want to protect our industries and workers in the most affected sectors, and we want to build. So we're going aggressively on building the future, taking control of our destiny. Make no apologies for that. That ensures that we don't have this situation again in the future. We are laser focused on making life more affordable for Canadians. First thing we did, cut the consumer carbon tax. First thing we did when we came back after the general election, cut middle class tax cut. GST cut for first-time home buyers. Build Canada Homes is all about affordability while driving a new industry. So yes, there's going to be implications for the deficit, but it'll build a much stronger Canada going forward.
They can't get their messaging right on the carbon tax. I don't know if you've noticed that, but usually when he explains why he got rid of it, he'll say it was too divisive. Which is quite a strange thing to say. But then he talks about affordability, and then he says, that's why we got rid of the carbon tax. So was it divisive, or was it impacting affordability? Which is it? What's the reason?
How about this one? We're going to have an EV mandate because it'll make Canada the strongest in the world. But we're going to have to prop up that industry because we're crushing it with the EV mandate.
But the magic formula, the Deus Ex Machina, if you will, is Donald Trump. So all mistakes can be attributed to him. All problems, all evils in the world can just be attributed to Trump. And then the contradiction untangles itself like magic.
We're going to cripple the media in Canada with Bill C-18. We're going to take away half their revenue, and we're going to selectively fund some so they're all at the begging bowl for government subsidy. That seems to be the regular mode to operate for these people. Do you know what I mean? It's saying cripple the industry, have them beg for money, and then now they're complicit. Or what you say, they comply.
And then portray yourself as the rescuer. I think that's the most important part, or one of the most important parts, isn't it? And say that the Conservatives would destroy while we rescue, even if the problem was created in the first place by them.
The auto sector is clearly, like the CEOs were saying, get rid of the EV mandate. You're killing us. You're actually crippling this industry. And some of the manufacturers were going to go back to the U.S. And instead of like killing it, they pause it, and then they're doling out more corporate welfare, and they've doled out tons of corporate welfare. That bus fiasco that we did just a while ago, where now they've taken those 1,200 buses off the road that now light on fire. Yeah, and then they said they were going to do cuts, and then there was this big hoopla, you know, Bruce Fanjoy there. They were going to talk about cuts, and then all of a sudden, you know, the federal employees like just started screeching and screaming. Now they're saying, well, you know, cuts when you retire, we'll cut. Again, everything is just kind of just means nothing.
That was during that press conference in the PN, the one that we've been taking clips from. That's when he said this, and that, you know, he was asked a very clear question, basically, how are you going to do this? Is it through firing people, through, you know, whatever it is, redundancies, or whatever? And he answered in like 10 words, and it was, and he did the classic. I think he did a face scratch, and it was just like, you know, that will happen with retirement and attrition. But it was very vague. I mean, it wasn't. I'm not so sure it justifies this headline. In other words, is what I'm saying, because it was. I didn't really get that from him. It was just vague, and he just mentioned attrition as like something that will happen. But it's often the case with Mark Carney where you don't really get a straight answer.
Well, they cornered Stephen McKinnon there, here, the government House leader, and asked him about the budget and listened to him and ah his way through it.
Canadians who were voting for you and Mr. Carney, who said that he will take care of the economy, and now you are clearly preparing the groundwork for a substantial deficit and austerity, things that Canadians may not have voted for last spring.
Oh, I think we were very realistic. I mean, Canadians certainly had the full financial picture for the previous fiscal year. They know what we're facing. We've been very, very clear about the investments that we intend to make, and I would challenge the premise of your question. We are dealing head-on with the major issues in our economy, whether it's diversifying trade, whether it's...
In terms of what you're telling Canadians, austerity, that is not anything that we had heard in the campaign. And these substantial deficits, not what we heard in the campaign.
We talked about spending less and investing more. And that's exactly what we continue to talk about. The Canadians expect their tax dollars to be spent by the government with maximum impact. And maximum impact today means combating crime, means building houses, means diversifying our trade and growing the economy so that young people can find a place to prosper in Canada. Merci.
Good banter.
Yeah, and then this is, you know, Ottawa list of fast-track nation-building projects includes development of two copper mines. But I mean, these things were already going on. It takes forever to get a mine going in Canada, like forever. I was a mine.
And we haven't. That's even. You know, we're talking about it without the main block, as I see, or one of the main blocks on doing anything in this country, which is the various lobbies that demand the right to stand in front of the diggers and the builders and say no, either metaphorically or in some cases literally, because that hasn't even really kicked off yet. You know, there's clearly a kind of environmental insurrection, if you will, or environmentalist insurrection brewing within the Liberal Party and within Canada in general. But then there's also the First Nations, and there's also NIMBYs and all kinds of other groups. That's gonna come in. So even when you already have all of these struggles to get through just to get shovels in the ground, but then all of these groups that demand, you know, the right to disrupt things, they're going to come and slow it down even more. So it's true, isn't it? It's something that, and again, it's not really been talked about.
And here's the leader of that parade right now. Let's listen in on Canada's activist media network.
Is the government going to move forward with its cap on emissions? You said you're negotiating something with Alberta and the industry. Is the negotiation to get rid of the cap, and they have to commit to eliminating or limiting greenhouse gas emissions in a different way?
Thanks for the question. We've talked about this before. I've been in business for a long time, negotiated many deals. I've never found it constructive to negotiate with a counterparty through the media.
Okay, that's fine. We won't negotiate, but can you at least confirm that the emissions cap is no longer necessarily going ahead?
Of course, I can't confirm that. We're in a negotiation. We are working hard with our friends in the different provincial governments and with industry. Here's what we agree on. What the federal government agrees on, what the Alberta government agrees on, and what the industry agrees on is if we can get pathways built, we will do something no other industry, no other oil industry in the world has done. It would be significantly reduce the carbon footprint of our entire industry. Right. That is a win for Canadians. That is something that the federal government is working to make happen. That is something the Alberta government is working to make happen. That's something industry is working to make happen.
So let me ask you this then. Do you think a cap on emissions makes sense? Do you see why it was previously, under the previous government, put forward?
I wasn't here for the previous government, and I'm
not asking you to respond to the previous
that.
government. I'm asking you whether you think a cap on emissions makes sense.
I am focused on results, not how one gets there. That's what I will do. That's what the Prime Minister has said. We're in the middle of discussions. We will work to get to the right endpoint. The right endpoint is getting pathways built, reducing the carbon intensity.
She doesn't care. She just wants that emissions cap. She wants that, right? She just wants that.
To be honest, I've got a different view on this one from you. I must admit, and for the first time, I actually sympathise with Rosemary Barton, and I thought, believe it or not, I'm going to say these words. I thought she did a good job there, actually.
Well, you know why though? It's because this is the only serious guy in the Liberal government that's going to get things done, but he's going to get things done different than what they want. That's the thing.
Yeah.
She went after him like a real journalist. She went at him like a real journalist, but she had a one-track mind. She wanted that.
It was her. She was naturally disposed. I assume. I would give you that. Yeah. For her own reasons, she was disposed to ask those questions, and she was getting a little bit upset about it because I fancy her as being on the left Liberal side of politics herself. But I would still say you have to remember that was an enormous part of the Trudeau government, the Liberal government, and he's now a very important and powerful Liberal minister. And those various promises from the Liberal Party, like emissions caps and things like that, and all of that stuff, that is, that's like a protagonist in the tragedy of Canada's economy over the last 10 years. And he should be asked that question, and he should answer it. And I actually think he treated her, and therefore the viewer, Canadians, with quite a lot of contempt there by just refusing to even engage with the question. And he's done that for his own political reasons, because he's in a party that's trying to balance economic progress and fanatical environmentalism. It's somehow trying to figure out how to keep both those things going forward. It's very hard to do that. But I don't know. She was right to ask it, and also I'd say we deserve an answer to that. Is the Liberal Party still the party of cranks that it was under Justin Trudeau? Is it still the party of fringe views when it comes to the environment, or is it now closer to the middle? Is it more sensible? We kind of deserve an answer to that question.
Here's another CBC reporter going hard on Pierre Poilievre with the same line of questioning.
Government was blocking that, but I want to talk to you about a related issue here, which is about emissions, carbon emissions. I've been covering you for years. I cannot recall hearing you talk about concerns around climate change. Do you worry about what climate change will do to our planet, Pierre Poilievre?
Sure, and that's why I'm so disappointed with the very problematic approach of the Liberal government, which has been to drive up energy costs and block projects from going ahead that would help the environment.
So are you an environmentalist, Pierre Poilievre?
Sure, you can call me whatever you like.
No, well, I want to know what you'd call yourself. We are talking about sea levels rising, worried about loss of biodiversity. You worry about those things.
Sure, and I also have solutions. Like if we were to displace dirty Asian coal-fired plants with clean Canadian natural gas, according to the National Bank, we could reduce global emissions by 2.5 billion tons, which is 3 times the emissions of all of Canada for a year. But to do that, you need liquefaction terminals like the one that Prime Minister Harper approved, LNG Canada. And we shouldn't be talking about having one more. We should be talking about having 18 or 19 LNG liquefaction plants. That's the number that were proposed when the Liberals took office. And so what I propose, let's take our natural gas, which is very clean, which is very cheap in Canada. Right now, we only get $3 per million metric British thermal units, and let's sell it to Asia for $14. We could help power the most populous continent by getting them off of dirtier coal and reducing global emissions. But the real difference between myself and the Liberals on this is they believe in keeping it in the ground. Those are Mr. Carney's words, by the way. He wrote them. We can debate whether he's flip-flopped on that as well, or the conservative approach, which is let's use our energy to grow the paychecks of our people and protect the environment. They believe in energy poverty. I believe in energy abundance, and that is the approach that we would take to the environment.
You say you're worried about climate change. Why have we not seen you ever commit to emissions reductions targets?
I just did right now.
That's not a target. That's saying we should do more to reduce our emissions. That's not about meeting the Paris targets. That's not saying our 2030 targets are right, wrong, should be higher, lower.
The current government is not meeting its emissions
targets.
But
I'm asking whether you think those are valuable targets, not about what the federal government is doing, which you've been clear about.
It would be very easy. In fact, it would be very easy to meet all of those targets if we include the global reductions that the export of Canadian nuclear and natural gas would engender. And so I'd say, sure, not only could we could displace the equivalent of 3 years of emissions in Canada by sending our Canadian natural gas over to Asia and displacing dirty coal. I mean, you know, the Asian economies are adding these coal-fired plants one after the other.
She's just squirming in her seat there. She's got one agenda only, right?
I mean, I often find her to be quite bad, I have to admit, on usual days. But I think she smelled blood there. You know, as a journalist, I can sympathize with that because Poilievre was being very slimy and he was avoiding her questions. Every single question she asked, he dodged. And that, you know, if you're a journalist like she is, who's been in the game a while, that'll get you very angry. And clearly she was starting to lose it a bit with him because the question was, you know, what do you think of all the sort of chit chat that we've experienced over the last 20, 25 years, basically since Al Gore did that documentary? She was basically saying, like, what's your view on that then? Are you on board with all of that sort of stuff where we obsess over emissions and we talk about carbon dioxide as almost something that we should feel guilty for and all the rest of it? That's what she was asking. And he, rather than just say what I think he thinks, which is, you know, I think it's been overblown. A lot of this is hysterical and it's environmental alarmism. Canada's not a problem. The real problem is India, China, etc. Rather than say that, which would have been principled and true to his principles, instead he started trying to have it both ways. And he was like, we will reduce emissions by doing the thing that I want to do. It's just kind of, I just thought that was quite a low grade performance from Pierre Poilievre. And I don't know how you're doing this, Jim, but you got me sympathizing with two CBC interviews, one after the other.
We both see it a different way. And I mean, I see them as singular focus. They want that. They want him to adhere to the religion. And to me, he answered the question by saying, if you want to talk about climate targets, I mean, selling our LNG will help with climate targets. I mean, she wants him to say the words Paris Accord. That's the religion, right? Because you need to say the words. He's saying, yeah, I believe. Because if you look at the goal for to reduce emissions, he says, yeah, let's reduce emissions. She wants the language, right? She wants him to say the verse, right? Just like any religion. She wants the verse. And this song and the verse, he's saying the goal is to reduce emissions. That part is clear.
I just wish he would have responded clearly and head on.
You should have said that to her. If I was there, I would have said, listen, I know you want me to say your words. You want me to say your song and verse. But what's the end goal? What's the end goal of the Paris Accord? To reduce emissions. This reduces emissions. So why do you need me to say the word? That's what I would have said.
Yeah, well, that would have been, I would have been interested in that. And I would have had more respect for Poilievre if he'd answered like that. But he didn't.
We
he
have
started going off on pretty sort of unrelated topics. So
we have somebody in our comments that are just flooding it with obviously a liberal bot or something that is just kind of just like keyboard typing like a maniac in there trying to feed, which is
and that's misinformation. The Canadian economy grew by 2.2% in the first quarter of 25. That's wrong, Fang Gui.
I think it's fungi he's trying to say there, right? Fungi? Fungi.
Could look at it that way. It's still interesting, though, isn't it? We don't often get, well, we do actually now and then get trolls, partisan liberal trolls, but I'm happy to have a diverse ecosystem
just make
in
up
the
stats,
comments.
right? Just throw stats out there, just like stats. Anyway, here's
highest
a stat.
in G7 countries, the dream of Mark Carney.
Yeah, let's see. The G7. Here's some of the top 10 things that the G7 is on for sure. Like Canada, 0 gold reserves. 0 gold reserves. The only G7 nation. How's that? Fungi? Because it's 0, and they sold most of their gold back when it was $1,000 an ounce. Mark Carney was part of that as well. Mark Carney was part of that sale when he was Bank of Canada governor. Also part of that sale, you can go on my LinkedIn, you can read that post. Also, economic advisor, they sold the last of it when Trudeau was the prime minister. And at the same time, most central banks in the world have been accumulating gold, and that started around 2010. Canada decided not to. I think we sold most of our gold around the value at around $1 billion, or maybe it was 8. I can't remember the exact number, but very low. Today it'd be worth $118 billion, which we could have used right now. Again, another reason. And guess and take a guess what the majority of Canada's reserves are, because they're not in gold. What is our, because every bank has reserve currencies and reserve assets. What do you think ours are mostly made up of?
Benjamin Franklin's.
USD, which we've been slamming. And then if you look at the USD index for the last 4 years, down. Another smart economic decision. Fungi.
Fungi. He's saying Google the data. I would say Fangway. That was an unintentional rhyme. I would say that 2.2% in the first 3 months. If the Canadian economy had grown 2.2% in the first 3 months of 2025, we would be setting fireworks off now. We'd be doing cartwheels. That's an annualized, which is, in other words, stats, right? Untrue. It's false. To say that it grew 2.2% in the first 3 months of 2025 is very, very misleading. It's wrong, because it assumes that the economy is going to grow exactly the same speed in the rest of the year, and that it would be a 12-month, 2.2% over 12 months. Nobody predicts that. Nobody expects that that's going to happen.
Maybe he works for Canada's misinformation office there, or maybe he works with Rosemary Barton that says Russian money. Anyway, Green Leader will ignore Fungi from here. Green Leader says Carney adopting right-wing politics on the environment. There's even in the Liberal Party, there's people that are dissenting. Obviously, you watch Rosemary Barton and the radio host there, starting to lose their mind on this. We see some activist groups coming out. I think we got a press release this morning from a group saying they're going to draw the line. I don't know if you saw that one, but there's a lot of activism starting to go out there. Starting to push back.
And she was, she issued threats while sounding very, very tolerant and patient. She was like, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I've read Values. Well, she even said, I'm willing to buy a copy of Values and give it to Mark Carney. Like, she was clearly attacking Mark Carney, but she was trying to pretend that she was going to give him the benefit of the doubt. But really, I think she was saying, if you don't sort this out soon, then I'm gonna join with the forces that want to bring you down, and that is inevitable, I think.
And here's the another story from Holly Owns of Blacklocks. The feds boast of their moral compass. The Department of Public Safety and Internal Audit praises itself for setting the highest standard of values, ethics, and a moral compass. This congratulatory report followed disclosures that the department played a lead role in falsely claiming the 2022 Freedom Convoy was a violent Russian-funded insurrection, led in part by our own friends at the CBC, Rosemary Barton. There you go. Values and ethics serve as the moral compass guiding, establishing benchmark for behavior. If you want to look at the misinformation office, look no further than the government itself. That Freedom Convoy.
Sorry, who are these auditors? Who audited it? I'm quite
That would have been
interested
an internal.
in it.
That would have been an internal audit. Yeah, internal auditors.
So much for the word auditor there then. So not really an auditor.
Yeah. Internal though, they usually stick to their things. That's why they expose these things, but they don't even care. Yeah, it just goes away anyway. And then this is the mess right now in the condo industry in Toronto. There, listen to this one here. This is absolutely shocking.
This building was supposed to be Dimitri Bazios' retirement plan. Instead, it could force him into bankruptcy.
It's causing stress and distress and misery.
In 2020, Bazios and his wife put down a deposit for a 600-square-foot condo in Toronto, valued at $884,000. But as interest rates rose and the condo market fell, keeping the investment property became impossible. The Bazios couldn't close on their condo, and it was recently sold on assignment for $590,000. They're now on the hook to cover the difference.
And now I have a mortgage on this property for $300,000, and I don't own it.
The Bazios story is becoming more common in markets like Toronto and Vancouver, where condo sales have plummeted. In Toronto, condo sales were down 21% in the second quarter compared to the year before, with many forced to sell their units at a loss.
Those buildings.
Ari Zadegan is a broker that specializes in distressed sales. She says those who bought a condo in the last 5 years and hope to flip it are losing thousands.
The ones that they were only dependent on the flip are the ones that are hurting.
The soft condo market in Toronto could have a long-term impact on housing supply. Fewer people want to invest in pre-construction, a key part of financing, and developers are backing out of projects. Real estate consulting firm Urbanation has tracked 9 canceled projects in Toronto so far this year. For Bazios, he would like to see not only changes to the ways condos are financed, but also to how they're built.
And stop designing these shoeboxes, because nobody wants them.
There could be.
So why did you buy one then, mate?
Hey, did you hear
Has
what he
to be
said?
the question.
Hey, but did you hear what he said? Stop designing these shoeboxes. Mark Carney announces more shoeboxes.
But yeah, I mean, totally. But also, stop designing them, stop building them, but stop buying them probably as well.
And this is the last time I'm going to mention Fun Guy here, who seems to want to take over the comments, where he's saying that Canada ranks 97 out of 100 and blah, 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 blah. 89% of Canadians don't think they're going to meet their monthly obligations. How's that? That's the truth, right? That's the truth. But just keep pumping up the stuff there, right? So, yeah, you know, our producer said, should I block him? And let him talk. Let him talk. I mean, people will see what he is and have fun with it. There you go.
It's talking about freedoms, which I find a little bit ironic. That you know, the likes. I don't know where that's from. I don't know what study that is that he's quoting from, but the likes of The Economist and lots of NGOs and think tanks who are certainly on the liberal left, they love to talk about Canada as this great success story because it represents their own values. Yeah. But it's not particularly free in Canada, is it? In many ways, anyway. There are obvious gaps in Canada's, or the freedom of the average Canadian citizen. Like, for example, ability to see news on Facebook. That's a freedom that Canadians don't have.
Yeah. Yeah, the only, again, you want to add to the list of the G7, top of the list, Canada, the only G7 nation that has news banned on the Meta platforms, Facebook and Instagram, while the federal government, which said that it was going to boycott Meta because of it, now has spent over $5 million on the Meta platform from January to March, and now won't release the information how much they spent since March when we reached out again, because now it's embarrassing, and they won't release the information until January of 2026. Freedoms. Freedom of the press.
Well, the funniest one of all, I thought, in that story that I wrote about that is Stephen Guilbeault, who is so, he's crystal clear when he talks about what he thinks of this situation, how evil he thinks Facebook is. He has spent money so that he can appear on Facebook and advertise, but
the newspapers
can't post stories there.
Okay, and this one here, back to this. Tommy Robinson, the Guardian reported, and this is where the left-leaning media is working hard overtime here. The Guardian reported 110,000 people at the London rally, and you know, they're claiming 3 million. But there's a little clip here. It's somewhere in between that number for sure. Let's play a clip here. You've been to England, I think.
I've been there a few times, yeah.
We're
I
not
would,
gonna
in
say-
defense of The Guardian, I don't know what you're doing here, mate. You're making me defend all of these dishonest people and organizations. But The Guardian are just quoting the police there. They
I
weren't,
get it.
they
I
weren't
get it. But
trying
look,
to guess
you've been there.
themselves.
Hey, you've been there.
Yeah.
No. Well, you'd stop the clip.
Yeah,
there.
I'm not sure where that's Whitehall, I think, isn't it? That's where the government.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's Whitehall, which is where the gates to Downing Street are, and it's where all the main sort of government buildings are. And it leads into Trafalgar Square.
A couple hundred people showed up.
It's a lot of people, but I don't know. They were saying like 3 million, weren't they? You're right there, but I don't think it's anywhere near
That's why
3
I
million.
said it's somewhere in the middle there somewhere, right? Somewhere in there.
Yeah, I think generally the biggest protest in the history of London is generally considered to have been against the Iraq War in 2003, I think it was.
But look at
that one is, if you look at the pictures of that one, that one is absolutely gigantic.
Hey, if you're saying that's 110,000, like, but at first they were saying thousands, right? The media, and then of course, you know, these images showed up, and then of course they couched it a bit. Like we have another clip here, one more clip here.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly doesn't look like 110,000. If you think about a sports game,
turn the sound off.
You think about a stadium with like 80,000 people in or whatever.
Like,
I mean, that can be your guide.
Yeah, there's a famous bridge there. You can tell us all what we're looking at here.
That's Westminster Bridge. You can see Parliament there at the bottom. That's the Palace of Westminster at the bottom, and then the London Eye, that monstrosity at the top there.
And there's the Ferris wheel where the government just goes round and round, scooping up your money.
Yeah,
as they go
the London
by.
Eye. That's what they call it. And there's a hospital there just opposite. Just opposite the Palace of Westminster.
But that's
I can't remember
good.
what that one's called now.
But here's the damning part, and here's the actual damning part. Here's CTV News. Thousands march in support of far-right activist Tommy Robinson. And why this is important, there's no quote marks around far-right. There's no saying this is somebody else. This is them saying, as a statement of fact, that Tommy Robinson is a far-right activist, which is, the stretch is how they work this, is far-right equals fascism, far-right, fascism equals Hitler. So that's what they feed their base. They feed their base this, and Tommy Robinson, I mean, you can do a thing on Google, you could do it on AI, you could do it everywhere, and ask if Tommy Robinson is a fascist or Hitler. The answer is going to be no.
The thing is with Tommy Robinson, they have a much easier time putting that label on Tommy Robinson because he was once a member of the BNP, the British National Party, which was, I struggle to say it was fascist, but it was it was hard right. It was very right wing. So you could kind of argue that he was a member of a far right organization once. He also founded something called the English Defence League, which a lot of people called far right. I'm not so sure that EDL was really far right. It was almost like off the spectrum. It wasn't really a normal political organization. But that's what they do, basically. They look at that. And they also look at the fact that Tommy Robinson throughout his career, really, has been very hostile to Islam in a very candid way, very frank in sort of lurid fashion, some might say. So they take that and then they say, okay, that's far right. But it's not quite adequate. If you wanted to come and sit down in like a serious discussion, like a politics seminar, and talk about that, there are lots of complications to that classification, but obviously they don't care about the subtleties and nuances of the discussion. They just say far right,
and they're wrong. And then again, global news jumping in. You know what? If one of them is going to do it, they might as well just pile on. That's what they do. And this is.
But
what
it's also they love it as well because of who was there. Think about who was there. And who sort of was involved, like Elon Musk. There was like a little tribute to Charlie Kirk. There were loads of faces and figures there that they despise, obviously. And so it helps to describe it in this way, because then you can just safely ignore it all. You can say, all right, it's just loads of Nazis then. Rather than what that was, in fact, that march, it was something much more complicated than that. And, it requires a lot more effort to try and understand and deal with it. But if you just say far right, you just get the stamp out and do far right, then you don't have to pay any more attention, do you? You can just close your eyes to it.
You and I had this discussion. It's a more serious discussion because when you do the far right, then you link it to fascism, and you link it to Hitler. And a lot of people, if you could go back in time, you would do anything you could to get rid of Hitler. And that's how these activate these people. This is the danger in it. This stokes fear and violence. That's what this does, right? Because to people, they link far right to fascism, fascism to Hitler. And now so all of a sudden, Tommy Robinson and Elon Musk are fascists and Nazis. And it's just absolutely ridiculous to even consider Elon Musk as a Nazi. And here it is, Elon Musk did make an appearance there. And what did he say why he was there? He said because he believes that he's a Brit and he has English ancestry and he loves Britain. And that's why he was there. So he spoke to the people there. But they don't look at it that way. They look at it as, Elon Musk, I mean, again, if you look at what Elon Musk is a libertarian. And libertarians and fascists, they don't go hand in hand.
No, certainly not. This is the thing about fascists, though, and we've had this conversation many times, haven't we? But just to go through it again, the thing with fascists, and the reason that, for example, Winston Churchill decided to stand up and say, like, there's no getting away from this, we have to fight fascism, and some other sort of leaders from the conservative right, the reason that they stood up and said that is because fascism is uniquely intolerant. And it will just gobble up absolutely everything. And it's completely right to say that they loathed libertarians. They loathed conservatives. Some of the earliest victims were conservatives of the Nazis in Germany and in Italy as well. They targeted conservatives because they saw them as, feeble and that they would just sell out the country and all that kind of thing. Like, fascists are they are their own set of dudes, and they will relentlessly despise and kill everybody else. So yeah, it is insane to see Elon Musk or a libertarian described as a fascist. But it's funny when he's got on his t-shirt there, he's got "What would Orwell think?" I believe that's what it is, or "What would Orwell do?" It's quite interesting, that Orwell, because George Orwell was a real anti-fascist, not somebody like Charlie Angus who's just a poser. George Orwell was an actual anti-fascist who went to fight fascists in Spain in the 1930s and got shot in the throat by a fascist. That's how committed George Orwell was. But he wrote an essay, which I sent to you over the weekend, where he bemoaned, in 1945, he bemoaned how stupid, opportunistic people had been abusing the word fascist and applying it to the likes of conservatives and just people who are right-wing or nationalists even, and how idiotic that was, and how basically the word fascism had just been relegated to mean somebody I don't like. That's George Orwell, who is about as anti-fascist, or was about as anti-fascist a person as you could be. To think that we're now here, like 80 years later, and we're still going through the same garbage, it's
listen
pretty
to this.
sad.
This is for you out there that think that Elon Musk or Tommy Robinson or Charlie Kirk are fascists and Nazis. Elon Musk, take for example, one of the things that fascists want to do is control the media. And Elon Musk freed the media. He actually put his companies at risk and spent like $44 billion to free the media. X is something fascists don't like. I mean, Elon Musk is a libertarian, if you could describe him as anything. He wouldn't even stick with MAGA. Like, I mean, if you look at him, like, Elon Musk is not somebody that can be controlled. He's not, he's the opposite of a fascist.
If you looked on X, after the murder of Charlie Kirk, you would see, or I saw certainly. I mean, I don't know if this is just unique to my algorithm, but I don't think it is. I saw loads and loads and loads of tweets from people who was celebrating his murder. They were delighted about it, and they had like 200,000 retweets and likes and all this kind of thing. If Musk truly was a fascist, he obviously wouldn't have permitted that to happen, would he? Because he was very upset about that, and he was very angry about his murder, and he was very angry at the people who celebrated it. A fascist, if it was Goebbels in charge of X, he would not be allowing that kind of thing to go on. People to mock
one of the biggest things
the murder
that fascists
of
do.
Political activist.
One of the biggest things for fascists is control of the media. Ask yourself, who tries to control the media? Just ask yourself, who in Canada controls the media? Who cripples it with Bill C-18?
But I would say as well, my general advice on that is just stop using the word fascist unless you actually know what it means. And I would say
exactly.
99% of people have no idea what it means. Stop
Buy
using it. It's
yourself.
something.
Yeah.
It's a very specific term. It's really specific. And like I said to you yesterday, it describes an extinct ideology anyway. It's not even extant
But
in our times. It doesn't exist anywhere.
our
So
point.
don't make a fool out of yourself. Don't talk about an ideology from the mid 20th century focused on machine technology and the national will and this reverence of ancient Rome and things like that. Don't waste your time, because if you don't know, just shut up. Just use another word. Use a word like nationalist or something if that's what you want to say. But don't use the word fascist, because it just makes you look stupid.
Well, the big point, though, is that the media using it to drive hatred and division, because they use it intentionally to drive their base. And it doesn't help, does it? Like for the global CTV and CBC to be using those words to label people fascist so that people can draw conclusions, and that's what's driving most of this hate. And here it is. Talk about where you have to be in life to be doing this. This is Fox doing a report on somebody that went to a memorial like for Charlie Kirk and was kicking the flowers. Like, who are you? Let's play this.
And we want to warn you, the next video is disturbing. A man trampled the memorial for Charlie Kirk at the Turning Point headquarters in Phoenix. This happened not too long ago. Our photog on the scene says the man kicked over flowers, vases, and balloons. He was taken to the ground by an onlooker and then arrested. And back here live, the suspect, the alleged assassin.
That's good. Like, who does that?
Can we get a psych assessment on him, please? That's
the guy,
my demand.
This is what you've done, CBC, CTV, and Global. This is what you do. This is what you cause people to say they're far right, fascists, Nazis. Here's another one from CTV. Right wing anger surges as Kirk's killing fuels calls for vengeance. All I've seen is a bunch of prayer vigils. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see some of these calls for vengeance. I haven't really seen any of that.
I see lots more.
I've looked at people that were that are considered on the far right. Like, I always forget his name, but the bearded dude with the glasses and all those people. I even like Nick Fuentes, who's considered the most extreme of the extreme. He's considered to be he is really considered to be a fascist and a Nazi and all kinds of things. I don't know if that's true, but he is far right, very far right.
And here's
I saw his video on X, and he was just kind of saying, he was talking about the Bible. He was talking about those who live by the sword die by the sword and stuff like that. Like, if even he's not doing it, then who's doing it? What are they talking about?
And a Canadian teacher suspended for forcing a class of 10-year-olds to watch the assassination while ranting about fascism. This is what you've done, CTV, CBC, ranting about fascism.
I mean, you say CBC, CTV. I'd be more inclined to investigate where this teacher went to university, because I have a feeling that that's probably where this teacher was taught that. Because how could you get? I mean, how could you be so ignorant and yet so confident while in a position of authority? Usually, in my experience, it's because you say, I've got a degree in history or something like that, even though you don't know anything. You don't know what you're talking about.
It's absolutely ludicrous. And here is. This is James Wood there, and this is there was I'm not going to play it because it's obviously the music thing, but Morgan Wallen was in Edmonton sending prayers to Charlie Kirk and his family, and he made an emotional appeal there, and everybody was just praying, and then the airline suspends workers for because people have lost their minds. Tallest people have lost their jobs for screaming for more death and say, this is just getting started. I mean, you talk about the left losing its mind. It's absolutely ludicrous here. And then here's the BC Human Rights Office launching campaign to fight misinformation, disinformation. Well, maybe start with the media. Start with the media.
Yeah, and I mean, start with the BC government, the BC NDP, lots of other political parties. They put out, if we're being generous, let's call it misinformation. They put out quite a lot of that, provincial parties and federal parties. So get serious. Talking about the Bible earlier, what was it that Jesus said? Stop talking about the mote in someone else's eye when you've got a beam in your own eye. Yeah, fix your own house. That would be a very good way to start, anyway, wouldn't it, from the BC government?
And this is from Godsod. He's a very prominent figure here in Canada, and he said he appeared on Charlie Kirk's show many times, and he just encourages people to go watch that episode. So you can go find Godsod's X account.
And J.D. Vance is going to host that today, I read. So that's quite interesting. He's going to host Charlie Kirk's, his show.
And here's Lindy Lee. You know who she was? You remember who Lindy Lee was? One of the biggest fundraisers for Kamala Harris. Disenfranchised now, though. She was one of the biggest fundraisers for the Democrats, and she got disenfranchised by this party. I mean, I would just take the Democrats and the Liberals. I mean, they're just very much a mirror of each other. But let's listen into what Lindy Lee has to say.
The roles had been reversed. We would have had Antifa 2.0. Cities would be on fire. They burned down my street 4 years, 5 years ago. They would have done that. And they're the ones accusing conservatives of hate. They're the ones whose words have turned into bullets. They're the ones why a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old no longer have their daddy. How do you explain that to a child? That their father is no longer going to come home because somebody happened to disagree with what he was saying. It's just completely incomprehensible to me, and conservatives from around the world, and it's not just the United States, we see in the United Kingdom as well, across Europe, across the globe, people are coming together in prayer, not pitchforks. And that is a fundamental difference between the left and conservatives.
Well, I mean, you can't help but state the obvious there, that I mean, you see George Floyd mentioned there. I mean, there are other examples. You don't just have to say George Floyd. There are loads of examples going back to, I can't remember the guy's name, in the 90s in Los Angeles. There's so many examples of this where there have been riots and carnage after a highly sort of politicized death of someone. But you can't help but notice in this case, there's been nothing of the kind, nothing at all, really.
Well,
we've got somebody in the comments, by the way. Somebody in the comments there saying that he was another white nationalist and homegrown terrorist. I assume that that's talking about the person that murdered Charlie Kirk. There's no evidence that he was right-wing or white nationalist or anything like that. But it's just, this is the kind of, misinformation, dare I say, or disinformation that people are trying to tread through now.
What I have seen is a lot of people on social media cheering on the death and saying we're just getting started, including the University of Toronto professor that is now suspended. And there's a lot of people that have lost their jobs, and now they're screaming because they are, being held accountable for what they say, spreading hate and more of this.
Well, have you not also seen people saying, like, even the Atlantic magazine? I used to have respect for the Atlantic. I used to really admire the Atlantic, actually, back in the day. But even recently, I had sort of respect for it. And yet they published some article where they were saying this just shows that the right in America and conservatives were complete hypocrites, and they love cancel culture, and they just wanted to be in charge and in a position where they could cancel people, and try to compare it to the worst excesses of the early 2020s and earlier, when we saw people losing their jobs for the most innocuous comments. How can you compare that? Like, if one of you're an employer, Jim, obviously, if one of your employees started to openly gloat about and celebrate the murder of an innocent man just because of his opinions, would you want to employ that person? I mean, it says something about their character. That's not cancel culture. That's kind of coming to the realization that maybe you employ a psychopath. How can those things be compared to people who were cancelled because maybe they, like, in some cases, because they said that they voted for Donald Trump and they lost their jobs? That's insane. And that cannot be compared to somebody reveling in the murder of a young man for no reason at all.
And again, I just want to stress this fact. Instead of media outlets being honest with people, they put up headlines, far right, and they know that links to fascism. They know, because they use the words. How many times has Kamala Harris called Trump a fascist, a far-right fascist, and Hitler?
She
How
did
many times
say that.
The Democrats say
she
that.
Did say that. Yeah. She said it was fascist, yeah.
I would play that clip over. And so these people feel justified. And so the media owns a lot of this, especially the left-leaning media. They own a lot of this. They feel that people have the space and the audience to do it in. That's the thing. And that's the problem. They feel they have the space to do it. And this man, if you believe in democracy, even a little bit, all he did was stand up for the foundation of democracy. That's it. Whether or not you agree with what he said, it is the foundation of democracy, allowing people to speak that maybe you don't even like what he says. Let's move on to Alberta, though. Former Alberta Premier Jason Kenney, you know, the other guy, the hypocrite that was on his rooftop there during COVID there having parties while he told you weren't allowed out of your house. Remember Jason Kenney?
One of many that fell on that sword.
Mr. Rooftop Partier, him and Gavin Newsom having parties, telling you you're not allowed outside. But Jason Kenney is saying that that if this separatist vote goes, it'll probably end up causing some divorces.
Which is interesting because he's never been married. What does he know about? What does he know about marriages? He was saying it's gonna really stress marriages. It's like, all right.
And a lot of people used to compare Jason Kenney to Ralph Klein. I don't think Ralph Klein would like the comparison. The rooftop party thing was just too much for me. That was a rooftop party too far for me. But here's another fallen politician. She's probably looking for a Liberal job. Maybe she's looking for the next opening. Bonnie Crombie resigns as Ontario Liberal leader after receiving only 57% of the approval in the leadership review. She lost her seat as well, didn't she not?
Did she? Honestly, she's such an irrelevance in Ontario politics. Doug Ford just, reigns supreme. He's just got there's no restraint on his power. He is so dominant in Ontario politics. And part of the reason is because she was just so ineffective, so boring. Every time she came on the radio, it's just like a snooze fest.
Well,
but I'm sure Mark Carney will create some sort of new $15 billion bureaucracy that she can be put in charge of or something like that.
This is a lot of the stories in the media got some attention, especially out of the United States. The United States really drew attention to this. That Florida turnpike, where that trucker did the illegal U-turn on a turnpike there, decapitating 3 people. And then there was that, I think it was one of the media outlets did an undercover operation in Ontario, so you can get a license for free. And obviously they dug into that place that was doing the licenses, and they suspended 185 commercial driver's licenses as being dishonest and telling these people they got to retake it. Imagine that. Well, that should have been the first thing to do, right? Here's a place doling out licenses for cash for licenses for commercial trucks, 50-ton vehicles. And now they're getting around something, oh, maybe we should check those licenses.
Yeah, I'm sorry though, as well. You must retake your tests. Why have they even been given that option? If you've shown that you've acquired a license by irregular means, let's say, why would you even be given that opportunity? Surely you should receive like a ban or something at least.
In some of the international news, King Charles sticking his face back in there. King Charles had something to say about Keir Starmer. And they were kind of stern words there. He said that we need to treat our troops better than we treat migrants. Homeless troops out in the streets. And
sorry, you're saying King Charles said that? What?
Yeah, it was a statement from the king, that we need to look after our troops.
But he said about migrants as well, you said?
Well, he said we need to treat our troops better.
Right, okay. He would definitely, he would say some like totally banal thing like that. But he would never say
I think he
immigrants
said put them first. Well, you can look for it as we're going. But anyway, Trump on his way to visit the king.
Yeah, that's this week. State visit.
There you go. And then Netanyahu, I know we're not going to play the clip, but Netanyahu calling out weak leaders. He's called out, Carney, Starmer, and Macron there. But and that was, he had Marco Rubio standing next to him as he was making those statements. Elon Musk.
Cheeky.
Elon Musk putting his money where his mouth is. He purchased on Friday, I think, $1 billion worth of Tesla shares, and Tesla jumped. Huge jump in Tesla shares this morning.
That's quite interesting that he's doing that. Yeah.
I guess he must believe in that company. Okay.
Seems like it.
And then we're like a couple of memes here before we sign off for the day. We're a little late here, but the system didn't break itself. It's broken by Sean Fraser and Mark Miller. They were two of the best ministers ever, if you're looking for comedy material.
If you're looking for loyalty to Justin Trudeau, maybe. Yeah, they were pretty good at that. I mean, Mark Miller, though, I would stress, you're talking about people who need to watch their mouth. He is definitely one of those people. The sort of things that he says and the way that he just kind of defames entire groups of people just willy-nilly. I mean, it's time has long passed that people like that should be held to account for the stupid things that they say.
There you go. And Dan McTeague, going to finish it off here with Dan McTeague, former Liberal MP as well, and I think he was in cabinet as well, was he not?
I'm not sure. I think he was he was down the ranks, but like some kind of secretary or something, parliamentary secretary or something. I don't think he was like a full-blown minister. He was on, believe it or not. He was on CBC this morning, CBC Radio. They interviewed him about gas prices, and they didn't even mention that, he says all kinds of things about Justin Trudeau being far-left maniac and all that stuff. I'm quite surprised that they restrained themselves.
Toned it down.
Yeah, I mean, I find that really interesting, actually, because usually they would, if they were going to invite him on at all, they would have said, now, you've made some very problematic posts on the internet, Dan. Care to explain yourself? But there was none of that. It was just, tell us about gas prices. I'm sure even he was surprised.
He was the gas buddy guy for a long time, right? Now he runs his own kind of website, though, right? It's something about energy as well.
I think the reality is he is the foremost expert on gas prices in Canada, and he's also very, very good at media, and he's really quite easy to get a hold of. And CBC probably valued that more than what they would get out of like jumping him and asking him about his tweets.
We've interviewed him a couple times, I believe.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's our show for today. We're back tomorrow morning, Tuesday at 9 a.m. And, try to be kinder, try to be nicer. And don't accept it anymore. When they put out far right and stuff like that, push back and go. You can actually go on OpenAI, ChatGPT, or Grok, and ask define fascism, and give them the definition. Send it back to them, and explain how they can put labels on people, and ask them what they're trying to do with that label, and what they've done to people.
Yeah, just think about the moral paradigm that we're living in right now, where it's basically completely fine to do violence against somebody that is deemed to be a Nazi or something, or a fascist. Like, that's considered to be pretty acceptable, because we've all grown up, haven't we? Or most of us, the vast majority of us, have grown up with the fascists and the Nazis being the number one enemies of civilization. And that's like, whether you look at the History Channel, whether you go to school, high school, whatever it is, that will be rammed down your neck. So if somebody says to you, all right, there's one of those Nazis / fascists, whatever, you're going to feel pretty justified in doing violence to them, aren't you? Or at least if you're stupid enough to swallow everything that you're
just go given. And just go ask for definitions for libertarian, conservative, fascist, Democrat, liberal, and then see where they fit. I actually put it on my LinkedIn. You can do a test. This fun guy obviously is a comedian, because he also goes out to say that Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh are like some of the best the politicians ever had. Fun guy.
Trudeau was the right leader in a tough time. I mean, don't hear many liberals say that. Never mind average Canadians.
Didn't Chrystia Freeland say that that the Liberals wasted 10 years in virtue signaling identity politics? She said that herself. And then basically Carney's come out and said that he was incompetent. So they got to get it together.
Now you talk about homicides. By neighborhoods, are you talking about like the Caribbean and Central America? Because I wouldn't celebrate having low homicide ratings in those places. You maniac.
Anyway, thanks for entertaining us. We're back here tomorrow morning. See you tomorrow. Cheers.
We don't just report the news, we live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News